This administration is for no other purpose
That's right.
than to show mankind the road to freedom. They're condescending saviors that come to us by their so-called pity from some judgment hall. But I'm here as a sample and example to show you that you can bring yourself up with your own bootstraps, and you can become your God, not in condescension, but in resurrection, in upliftment from whatever condition, economic injustice or servitude or racism you might have had to endure. Within you rest the keys of deliverance.
On November 18, 1978, the Jonestown Massacre occurred in Jonestown, Guyana, and the world was in shock. More than 900 members of the religious group called the People's Temple were reported dead in a mass murder under the direction of their leader, Jim Jones. Most people had never heard of the People's Temple or the Reverend Jim Jones, and just as many could not find Guyana on a map. The news was sporadic, but it was also dramatic, and as over time, the incredible events that led up to the tragedy began to become known. What was the People's Temple? Who was Jim Jones? Why was he controversial? Why was the People's Temple called a cult? What events led up to the mass murder?
Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former history professor, Army and Marine Corps veteran, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History.
James Warren Jones was born on May 13, 1931, in Crete, Indiana. As a young child, Jones became a regular churchgoer, and after graduating from Butler University, he decided to enter the ministry. His father, James Thurman Jones, a World War I veteran, was an alcoholic and worked as a mystic fortune teller. His mother was Lynetta Putnam. During the Great Depression, the family went through tough times and relocated to Lynn, Indiana in 1934 so his father could find work. As a child, Jim Jones was heavily influenced by the works of Karl Marx, Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, and Mahatma Gandhi. He developed a keen interest in religion and its influence upon people. Jones was described as a social outcast and a really weird kid obsessed with death. And he would hold funerals for small animals and had once stabbed a cat to death. But Jim Jones was the opposite of his father, who was an open racist. A major conflict between the father and son erupted when the elder Jones refused one of Jim's black friends to come into their house. James Sr.'s drinking and abuse saw Lynetta leave him in 1948, and she took young Jim to Richmond, Indiana, where he graduated from Richmond High School in 1948. Jim Jones married a nurse named Marceline 4 years his senior in 1949 and moved to Bloomington, Indiana. He attended Indiana University Bloomington and moved to Indianapolis in 1951, where he started attending meetings of the local Communist Party, which interrupted his education. He continued his education and attended night school at Butler University and earned a degree in secondary education in 1961, and had started getting involved with various Marxist and various religious groups. Jones knew how to read people. He became a student pastor in the Somerset Southside Methodist Church in 1952, where he observed that people with money are attracted to faith healing and such services, and these financial resources can be helpful in his goals. Jones was dedicated to raising money to start his own church. Using his charm, Jones tried various ventures, including selling live monkeys door to door. He also sold Bibles and encyclopedias. Jim and Marceline Jones adopted 3 children of Korean-American ancestry named Blue, Suzanne, and Stephanie, and in 1954 they adopted an 11-year-old girl of Native American ancestry named Agnes Jones. Then, in 1959, the couple had their first and only biological child, a son named Stephen Gandhi Jones. Jones was charismatic, and he organized a convention from June 11th to the 15th, 1956, which was quite successful. And from there, he launched his own church under different labels until he decided upon the People's Temple Christian Church Full Gospel, which was open to all races. This was quite revolutionary for that time, and in 1960 he was appointed as the Director of Human Rights Commission by Democratic Mayor Charles Boswell. According to Jones's biography, he started integrating police stations, hospitals, churches, restaurants, etc. He started setting stings, catching restaurants refusing to serve black customers or hospitals refusing black patients. Political pressure from Jones made quite a few hospitals desegregate their wards. White-owned businesses and other civic leaders hated him and retaliated, such as a dead cat being thrown into his house, a swastika was drawn at the church, dynamite was thrown in the coal pile at a temple, and many such events occurred. As if to emphasize his non-racial egalitarian nature, he and his wife adopted 3 children of partial non-Caucasian ancestry and called it the Rainbow Family. Still setting a trend, in 1961, the Jim and Marceline family adopted a black child named James Warren Jr., as well as adopting another son and naming him Tim Jones. In 1963, Jones moved temporarily to Brazil as a missionary of sorts. He didn't portray himself as a communist. However, he stated his work with the Rio de Janeiro slum areas and explored local Brazilian syncretic religions. However, the guilt of leaving behind the Indiana struggle of civil rights made him return. Upon his return to the U.S., Jones relocated to California, where he established satellite factions of the People's Temple in San Fernando, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. This was where he organized his followers to help the poor and homeless, and Jim Jones received several humanitarian awards in Northern California owing to his work with the poor and the underprivileged. Jones's family resided outside the town of Ukiah in 1971 with some 100 original followers, believing that the move would protect them in the event of nuclear holocaust. Ukiah was far away from main roads and quite rural, with small farms. Jones had also made a big impression on the local political scene, and, due to his commitment for school activism, Jim was appointed to the San Francisco Housing Authority by Mayor George Moscone in 1976. Jones soon gained a reputation as a charismatic churchman who claimed to have psychic powers such as the ability to foretell the future and miraculously heal those who were sick. Well, those sick persons were perfectly healthy people planted in the audience to dazzle the crowds, to entice them to donate money so that Jones could further his good works for the Lord. During this period in San Francisco, local political heavy hitters, such as City Councilman Harvey Milk, an openly gay man accused of pedophilia, and future U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein, who endorsed him and the People's Temple. Milk even penned a letter in support of Jones and his religious group. Milk and Mayor George Moscone were shot and killed in City Hall on November 27, 1978 by Dan White, a conservative former city supervisor, and Feinstein later became mayor. Even future Mayor Willie Brown was one of them. He kept defending Jones, regarding him as a man of highest character, and even wrote a letter to President Carter on Jones's behalf. Jones's psychopathic nature began to be revealed as temple members were regularly humiliated, beaten, and blackmailed, and many were coerced or brainwashed into signing over their possessions, including their homes, to the church. Black members and members of other minority groups were convinced that if they left the People's Temple, they would be rounded up into government-run concentration camps. Family members were kept apart and encouraged to inform on one another. Reports of blackmailing members, physical and even sexual abuse, and Jones's associations with Milk and others in the gay community, as well as his questionable contact with the Bay City's underworld, saw him and the People's Temple falling under intense scrutiny, This included the IRS and the FBI. This was when Jones decided to start wearing dark sunglasses and traveling with bodyguards. Feeling the heat and knowing that the federal government was going to come knocking sometime fairly soon, in 1974 he relocated his remaining flock of around 1,000 of his 5,000 people to South America and created a socialist Marxist workers' paradise away from U.S. federal interests and jurisdiction. But some people left the temple. This settlement in Guyana was named Jonestown after the self-appointed Messiah. After leaving, it surfaced that Jones forced all the temple members to sign over all of the wealth they had to fund the relocation. People sold or transferred the deeds to their homes, emptied their bank accounts, and sold vehicles to give the proceeds to Jones. Some disaffected members were able to get messages to loved ones back home, which Jones tried to stop, forbidding any contact with the outside world. A few had managed to escape and return home and tell their stories, which garnered the interest of the federal agencies and one member of Congress, Representative Leo Ryan. Jones now had a major image problem, and he had to perform damage control and rehabilitate his public image. So he hired Mark Lane and Donald Freed to help make the case of a great conspiracy by intelligence agencies against the temple. Many of the complaints that managed to get out were that temple members worked long days in the fields and were subjected to harsh punishments if they questioned Jones's authority. Their passports and medications were confiscated, and they were plagued by mosquitoes and tropical diseases. Armed guards patrolled the jungle compound. Members were encouraged to inform on others, and all were forced to attend lengthy late-night meetings. Their letters and phone calls were censored. This is cited from a State Department report. During the consular visits, it has been observed that the local Guyanese administration exercises little or no control over the Jonestown community, and that the settlement's autonomy seems virtually total. This is due to a variety of reasons, which include the fact that the area in question is remote, and thus the government's rather primitive administrative machinery is already overstrained by its obligations to the Guyanese citizens living in the region, as well as an understandable disinterest on the part of the local officials to bother with an apparently self-sufficient community of non-Guyanese who obviously are not actively seeking any extensive contact with the Guyanese environment in which their settlement is located. In essence, the local government would not intervene and had no interest. A cable from the U.S. Embassy in Guyana to the U.S. Department of State in June 1978 characterized the autonomy that Jones subsequently found in Guyana this way. What we have, therefore, is a community of American citizens existing as a self-contained and self-governing unit in a foreign land, and which, for all intents and purposes, is furnishing to the residents all of the community services, such as civil administration, police and fire protection, education, healthcare, etc., normally provided by a central government within its territory. By that time, Jones was in declining mental health and addicted to drugs, and he had his own throne in the compound's main pavilion and compared himself to Vladimir Lenin and Jesus Christ. He was convinced that the government, the media, and others were out to destroy him. He also required People's Temple members to participate in mock drills in the middle of the night. In November 1978, U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan traveled to Guyana to inspect the People's Temple's activities and the Jonestown compound on a fact-finding mission. Ryan was there to investigate the rumors that some members of the cult were being held against their will and that some were being subjected to physical and psychological abuse. On November 14, 1978, Ryan and his aides arrived at Georgetown and then on November 17th arrived in Jonestown. Leo Ryan, along with other congressional delegates, attended a party hosted by Jones. The following day, on November 18th, several temple members who wanted to leave the compound spoke with Ryan and his group, seeing this as their only way out alive. Those wishing to leave boarded his delegation's truck in order to accompany him back to the United States. However, after a physical attack upon Ryan, he was physically assaulted for even speaking with the members who wanted to leave. The delegation left abruptly, taking with them 15 members who agreed to leave the temple. Other members attacked Ryan shortly before the vehicle left the compound, but he escaped unhurt, and the truck continued with Ryan and his cortege on board. Temple members, following Jones's orders, radioed to the security team guarding the runway and the access road, and when the truck stopped, they then launched an attack. The gunfire erupted with several people hit by bullets. Those killed were Ryan himself, a reporter and cameraman from NBC, a photographer from the San Francisco Examiner, and a female People's Temple member who was attempting to leave, with 11 others being wounded. Jones, knowing that the executions would bring the military or police, then ordered his security team to dispense the punch they had made on his orders, which had been rehearsed many times in case the compound was threatened. The fruit drink was laced with cyanide, tranquilizers, and sedatives. It was first squirted into the mouths of babies with syringes, and the older children were told they were drinking Kool-Aid, and then the drinks were consumed by the adult members. Jones himself died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and he was found sitting on his throne from which he ruled his small empire. Less than 100 of the members survived. Those who did survive had either previously defected that day or were in Georgetown on business. Investigators from Guyana and the USA later discovered a cache of firearms, hundreds of passports stacked together, and $500,000 in U.S. currency. Millions more had reportedly been deposited in bank accounts overseas. The People's Temple effectively disbanded after the incident and declared bankruptcy at the end of 1978. Guyanese troops arrived the next day, and the death toll of cultists was eventually placed at 913, including 304 who were under the age of 18. Some death tolls include the 5 people killed at the airstrip, bringing the total number of deaths to 918. Many people had perished with their arms around each other. Over 400 bodies were never claimed by next of kin and are buried at the Evergreen Cemetery in Oakland, California, where many of Jim Jones's followers were from. A stone memorial to the Jonestown victims was unveiled at a ceremony in 2008. A terrifying recording of the event known as the Death Tape, which had recordings by Jones, which were played over the compound loudspeakers, were found.
How very much I've loved you. How very much I've tried my best to give you the good life. But in spite of all of that I've tried, a handful of our people, with their lives, have made our life impossible. There's no way to detach ourselves from what's happened today.
These helped investigators understand what happened, and over 1,000 recordings of propaganda, conversations, and sermons that painted a gruesome picture of the activities of the People's Temple. In the aftermath, there was only one person to stand trial for any of the crimes committed, Temple member Larry Heaton, for his involvement in the murders at the airfield. He was found guilty of conspiracy and aiding and abetting in the murder of Leo Ryan and others, and the attempted murder of U.S. Embassy official Richard Dwyer, and was sentenced to life in prison. He was released in 2002. Another man, Charles Beichman, pleaded guilty to the attempted murder of a young girl and served a 5-year prison term in Guyana. Today, Jim Jones's sons, who survived the massacre because they happened to be away that day, say they are still trying to find healing and forgiveness for their father and themselves. That's some things about Jonestown I'm never going to deal with, and I'm okay with that, said Jim Jones Jr., 57 years old at the time of the interview, who said in an interview for Truth and Lies, Jonestown, Paradise Lost, "The mine's a dangerous neighborhood. Don't go alone." There were many people that were dear to me, and a good number of them that I was very dear to, Stephan Jones, 59, said. I often thought about what it must have been like for them, for us not to be there, and I asked their forgiveness. Stefan said he believes his father's primary purpose was to bust down some walls and to create a community where all are welcome, no matter where they come from, but eventually it all became superficial. There was nothing spiritual about my father. Of course, in my view of things, he had every bit the loved and juicy soul in him that everyone else does, but he had lost complete sight of that. His entire existence was superficial. He had additional comments also, stating, "Not only was Dad never around, but it felt like everybody else had Dad," Stefan recalled. "We didn't have our father, and they were taking our father away from us, so there was that resentment as well. It was hard on the family." Stefan and Jim Jr. saw their father become more abusive and addicted to alcohol and drugs, which, when introduced to a psychotic personality, is a dangerous combination. Stefan also said, "My experience with my father was he was more an actor than genuine, almost always. He was always aware of eyes on him, because all that mattered to my father was his perception of other people's perceptions of him." Religious cults have been around for centuries, but Jim Jones and the People's Temple set the standard for the irrational, ruthless, and incomprehensible image of cults that we live with today. The example of Jim Jones should be used as a dire warning to all of us of the dangers of self-appointed messiahs and those who invoke supernatural powers. Thanks to channel member John F. Davies for suggesting this subject and for supplying research data, in particular the Harvey Milk letter. Thanks, John.
Thank you for watching this episode of Forgotten History. If you liked what you saw, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like to assist with the ever-increasing cost of production, please consider becoming a channel member and joining our Patreon page. Please check out our merchandise store. And thanks for watching.